Good morning, students. Good morning to all. And last day we have studied about the sources of business finance. And in that portions we have studied the classifications of business finance. Today just we will go to the another one of the concepts. Today we will study about the factors influencing the choice of business finance. So there are many factors are there to choosing the business finance. So what are the factors are there to influencing the choice of business finance means? First one is the cost. On the basis of the cost of business organizations, we can select the business finance. The business enterprises have to analyze the cost of mobilizing and utilizing the funds. For instance, where the interest rate is relatively lower, public deposits, debentures, stamps, loans, etc. may be desirable option. So the cost of business organizations, so we can easily select the business finance or the sources of business finance. Next, the financial capacity of the firm. So every financial organizations also has some of the financial capacity to repay the fund to the related organizations. So financially sound enterprises have capacity to pay interest promptly and return the capital at the stipulated time. Suppose if any of the firms are not having the capacity to repaying the money in the financial organizations, it will be affect some abundantly. So such enterprises can go for the borrowed sources. On the other hand, if the firm is not financially stable, it has to depend on owned sources of fund. If it is used the own fund, there is no need to repay the money and there is no need to paying the interest rate. So next, the form of organizations. The choice of sources of fund normally depends on the form of organizations. So if you are considering the sole proprietors and the partnership firm cannot issue the shares and debentures. So they have to depend on short-term sources like bank finance, leasing, hire purchase, factoring, etc. If it is used this type of the business finance, so it will be never affected to repaying the interest rate. But in the same time, if you are considering the government organizations or companies, so it has the fund, it has the possibilities and power to making the funds in the form of issuing the shares. So when they have the possibilities like that, it can use the method of issuing the shares. Next is time period. So on the basis of time period also, the business organizations can select the types of business finance. The period for which business finance is required determine the suitable source. For instance, where funds are required for shorter period, bank finance like overdraft, cash credit, bill discounting, mortgage, leasing, hire purchase is enough. If any of the banks, if any of the business organizations, if it is required the long time period, it has to depending upon the other type of business finance. So it can easily possibly do using the shares, debentures, bonds and other methods. Next, risk factor. So on the basis of taking the risk of uncertainty, so we can select the business finance. So owned fund do not invite any risk, while using borrowed funds entails a lot of risk. So when we are borrowing the money for the purpose of improving our business organizations, and in the same time if any of the risk is arised, the business organizations will be stuck on the repaying the money. So if any of the owner, the owner of the business organizations in the beginning level, he has to use their own fund for the improvement of business organizations. The probable default in paying interest and capital may lead to the liquidation of business enterprises. Besides, damaging the reputations of the business concerns in the business world. If any of the business organizations are not having the capacity to repaying the money, so the business or the financial organizations can have the possibilities to take the actions. If it is take the actions, so the business organizations will lose their payment and will lose their reputations in the business world. Next, control. The control of the business organizations. The equity shareholders are real owners of the corporate enterprises. They exercise complete control over the management of the company. If the existing shareholders do not like to lose their control, they must not issue more equity shares to supplement the financial resource. If the full control is holding by the owner only, or if the persons have the unlimited liabilities, they have to use their own fund. If any of the business organizations has the responsibilities or the responsibility of the business organization spread out over throughout the shareholders, they can enter into the financial organizations. So on the basis of the control of the business organizations also we can choose the business finance. Next is stages of development. Stages of development mean, so many of the business enterprises are existing in our nations. The beginning enterprises are already in the existing business organizations are there. So a new business enterprises finds it harder to mobilize business finance than an established firm, because the already existing business organizations have the possibilities to earning more income from their business organizations. But in the beginning stage of development, if any of the business organizations are there, so it cannot have the possibilities to earning more income, and if it is loss arranged anything, it will be affected the whole business organizations. Next, credit worthiness of firms. Credit worthiness means if any of the firms has the more possibilities by having any of the best and worth shareholders or the worth board of directors. Some sources of funds like debentures and creditors require the business firm to mortgage the assets. This hurts the credit worthiness of the business concerns in the financial market. So on the basis of the credit worthiness of firms, so we can choose the business finance. So anyway, so we have the 8 factors. We have the 8 factors to choosing the business finance. On the basis of 8 factors only, so business finance will be going to consider. Okay students, then the chapter 19th is over. So we have the time, so we will go to the next chapter, chapter 20, international finance. So first we have to know about the international finance. So international finance is a branch of financial economics that deals with the monetary interactions that occurs between two or more countries. So already we have studied, even if you are established any of the business organizations in the boundaries of our nations, the finance is need. But if it is like that, if any of the two nations are transaction our goods and commodities, that is called international trade, or the international finance is concerned with the help of the international trade. So international finance plays a vital role in the international trade and in the sphere of exchange of goods and service among the nations. So already we have studied, So no nations as the self-sufficient in any of the productions. So all the nations must be depending on other nations for their consumption of commodities. So some of the points are there, the importance of international finance. So all the nations must being in the need of international finance. Why? Some of the importance are there. So what are the importance mean? First, the international finance helps in calculating exchange rates of various currencies of nations and the relative worth of each and every nation in terms of thereof. Already we have studied about the exchange rate. Exchange rate means all the nations are doing in the international trade. When they are doing the international trade, so the different type of the currencies will transferring from one nation to another of the nations. So the transferring the currencies from one nation to another of the nations, it will be calculated. So on the basis of international finance, it will be helpful to calculating the exchange rate of various currencies of nations. And not only that, international finance helps the relative worth of each and every nation. On the basis of demand, the commodity, on the basis of demand of the commodity only, we can improve the export. So if we are increasing more export, the value of currencies will be increased. So we can easily calculate and comparing the value and worthiness of the money. Next, it helps in comparing the inflation rates and getting an idea about investing in international debt securities. So inflation rates are going to compare with the help of international finance, and we will getting some of the idea about investing in the international debt securities. So when we have the dealing in the international finance only, we can get some of the idea about investing in the international debt securities. What are the securities, what type of the securities are there, or whatever ways are there to making the investment in the international debt securities. Next, it helps in ascertaining the economic status of various countries and in judging the foreign market. So we can have the possibilities to calculating the judging the foreign market, calculating the various countries, the foreign market. Next, the international financial reporting system facilitates comparison of financial statement made by various countries. So the international finance created the international financial reporting system. So this system facilitates the comparison of financial statements made by various countries. So every country also will making the financial statement. So all the nations have paying and receiving the currencies from one nation to another of the nations. So the international finance only will providing the financial statement. Next, it helps in understanding the basic of international organizations and maintaining the balance among them. So when we are involving in this international trade only, we will be in the need of international finance. So when we are being in that, so we will come to know about the different type of the international organizations. Next, international finance organizations such as International Monetary Fund, World Bank, etc. mediate and resolve the financial disputes among the member nations. So after knowing about the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, so we will come to know about the functions and the duties of the organizations, and because of that we will come to know about and we will get many of the benefits from that. Next, foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment. I think you may have heard about the foreign direct investment because as I told already in our previous lessons. So foreign direct investment is an investment made by a company or an individual in one country with the business interest in another countries in the form of either establishing business operations or acquiring business assets in the other countries, such as ownership or controlling interest in foreign companies. So, within the name itself, we can understand about the foreign direct investment. If any of the individual persons in one of the countries can easily make the investment on the another one of the business organizations in other countries, this is called foreign direct investment. So because of one of the time, so before 1990, so many of the investment or many of the investors were ready to make the investment on our countries, but our rules and the conditions of our constitutions it was not allowed. But now we have liberal to making the direct investment. So advantages of foreign direct investment. So why we have to allow the foreign direct investment? So when we are allowing the foreign direct investment, if you are asking if there is any advantages, yes, some of the advantages are there. So what are the advantages means? On the basis of or under some of the headings, we can come to know about the advantages of foreign direct investment. First one is achieving the higher growth in national income. So when we are allowing the foreign direct investment, we can achieving the higher growth in the national income. How it is possible mean the developed countries get much needed capital through foreign direct investment to achieve higher rate of growth in national income. So when we are allowing the foreign direct investment, so many of the foreigners can have the possibilities to come to our nations, and instead of our entrepreneurs, he will make the investment and he will take all the responsibilities to establish the new type of the large scale and small scale industries. So there is no need to making the investment from our nations. So without having the investment, we can get more foreign direct, sorry, more income, national income. Next, help in addressing balance of payment crisis. So already we have studied many of the balance of payment crisis will be appearing in every nations. So mostly the developing nations will meet the balance of payment crisis in the beginning. So foreign direct investment provides inflow of foreign exchange resources into a country. This helps the country to solve adverse balance of payment positions. So when we are allowing the foreign direct investment, we will get some of the foreign currencies also, and because of that we can easily paying the balance of payment. So we will be in the neutralized in the balance of payment. Next, faster economic development. How it is possible being the foreign direct investment brings technology, management and marketing skill along with it. So these are crucial for achieving the faster economic development of the developing countries. If you are considering the developing countries, you will be never power. We will have not sufficient power to borrowing the purchasing the new technologies and the skillful organizations. But when we are allowing the foreign direct investment, the foreigner itself will bring the all type of these facilities. So our economic development also will be improve as faster. Next, generating employment opportunities. So foreign direct investment generates a lot of employment opportunities in developing countries, especially in high skills areas. Because if any of the foreign direct investors want to investing in any of the developing countries, he must providing the skillful training to our host countries. So in this case, so most of the educated persons and uneducated persons can have the possibilities to get the employment opportunities. Next, encourage the competition in host countries. So, India foreign direct investment into developing country promotes healthy competitions. So this leads to enterprise in the developing countries operating efficiently and effectively in the market. When the arrival of foreign direct investment, so the foreign industries also will be increased, and it will be providing any of the commodities with the low rate and the high quality product. So when they are providing like that, our host countries enterprises or the enterprises for our host countries also have to take that responsibilities, and he also have to reduce the price for their commodities. So five advantages are there when we are allowing the foreign direct investment. Next, disadvantages of foreign direct investment. Even though if we have some of the advantages in allowing the foreign direct investment, some of the disadvantages also is there. So what are the disadvantages are there mean? First one is exploiting the natural resources. The foreign direct investment companies deplete the natural resources like water, forest, mines, etc. As a result, such resources are not available for the usage of common man in the host countries. So if you are allowing the foreign investors, only they will invest the money. They will never bring the natural resources. They can must take the natural resources from our host countries. So as much as he can possible, he will exploiting our natural resources. After depletion of the natural resources, he will start to investing the industries, and the common man in the host countries will be affected in futures. Next, heavy outflow of capital. The foreign companies are said to take away huge funds in the form of dividend, royalty fees, etc. So only they will provide the salary for their employees of host countries, but all the profit in the name of dividend, royalties, fees, etc. will be going to the other countries. So this causes a huge outflow of capital from the host countries. Even the manpower and the natural resources, everything will be moving from our host countries to the investors countries. Next, not transferring technology. Some foreign enterprises do not transfer the technology to developing countries. They mostly transfer the second-hand technology to the host countries. Even though if you are allowing the 100% of investment for the foreigners, they will never bringing the new types of the first hand technology in our host countries. So the second hand technologies only will be bring here and made to the and used for the industries. So some of the transferring technologies will not be appear. Next, exploiting the cheap labor. The foreign enterprises employ cheap labor force at a lower pay in developing countries. They do not employ local people for the higher post in the management. If any of the uneducated peoples are there to doing some of the third hand work means the sweeper, helper, and some of the doing work only they will use. So they will never appointing the high posted people in the host countries. So further, they do not extend the privilege they usually give the employees in their home countries to the employees of the host countries. Next, creating monopolistic environment. So multinational companies which entered the host countries through foreign direct investment route create monopolistic conditions in the host countries through their market power. Because in the beginning only they will give some of the facilities, they will give some of the concession to selling in the low price. After that, if they are getting the good place in the market, he will become as a monopolistic persons. So after in course of time, he only has the power to fixing their price of their commodities. So foreign direct investment also create the monopolistic environment in the host countries market. Okay students, So I think is enough. So today we have studied the advantages and the disadvantages of the foreign direct investment. Just you also take these advantages and the disadvantages of the foreign direct investment as your study portions. And if you have any doubts, please ask in our interactive session period. Thank you.